Good morning and welcome to Northern Lights Center for Spiritual Living. We're a community of people dedicated to using spiritual and practical principles to create lives we want to live. And Northern Lights Center for Spiritual Living offers practical and spiritual tools to make positive changes in our lives. Our promise here is to reveal, inspire, uplift, celebrate, and magnify your greatness. We acknowledge our presence here on the traditional and unceded lands and waters of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and Coastal Salish peoples. These people are still here, and we join with them in how they continue to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. We seek to resist the erasure of Indigenous histories as we work towards honoring and inviting the truth. In a similar way, we acknowledge how much of what we know in this country today, including its culture, economic growth, and development throughout history and across time, has been made possible by the labor of
Going?
enslaved Africans
Okay.
and their ascendants who suffered the horrors of transatlantic trafficking, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. We also name the Asian and Chicano people who toiled with little recognition. We are indebted to their labors and sacrifices, and we must acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and resulting impacts that can still be felt and witnessed today. Please join me for our opening song, In This Very Room by Ron and Carol Harris. In this very room, there's quite enough love for all the world. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for all the world. And there's quite enough peace and quite enough power to walk through our every fear. For spirit, sweet spirit, is in this very room. This very room. So I'm going to invite people to find a comfortable position. Just be aware of your feet on the floor. And allow ourselves to consciously attend to our breath. So as we breathe in, notice the rise of the chest. As we breathe out, notice the fall. As we attend to our breath, what can we let go of? Consider letting go of external expectations. Consider letting go of directions that we might have received about how we should be. Allow ourselves to breathe out and release directives for being anything but what and who we are. So as we create this space for our breath, allow ourselves to consider our own values. What is it that captures our attention? What is it that when we think about it or we experience it, we just automatically encounter joy? Breathe in that joy. Breathe in that inspiration. Just as our breath can fill our chests, allow our own constellation of values and delights to expand us. What is it that we have practiced so thoroughly that we are now able to do it automatically? And this practice is one that brings joy. Just imagine giving ourselves space for our authentic pleasures, joys, inspirations. What would it be like? What will it be like to start each day from a commitment to our authentic selves? Where we've released any notion of shoulds or musts or have tos, and instead we simply have that experience of expressing what the universe calls us to be. Just allow ourselves to embrace those aspects, those qualities, those experiences. Those values, those delights. And just be aware of the physical feeling of that receptivity to ourselves. No explanation is required. There is simply that embrace of our highest and best and truest selves. And just make a space for the majesty of that. So, in that spacious, majestic place, become aware again of your breath, your chest rising and falling, the ease and grace of just breathing in and breathing out. And allow yourself to come back to the room, to be present to your body. If it's sitting, the chair underneath it, or the floor if you're sitting on the floor. Give a little stretch and come back to the room. And I say, Amen, Ashe, and so it is. So today's reading does not come from the internet. You will not find it on my cell phone, but it is in the Science of Mind magazine for this month. So I'm imagining Jeffrey has already read it, but maybe others have not. The title for this morning is called You Are a Spiritual Powerhouse. All too often, we seek others for advice instead of trusting ourselves. We doubt ourselves. We have our own inner guidance systems that never fail us, yet we overlook them. Why? Because we've been programmed to believe we are limited in power. Our parents and friends believed they were limited, and they passed that belief on to us. The truth is, we have infinite power within. Recently, I read an experiment scientists conducted with fleas. You know, fleas have the ability to jump 13 inches, which is 200 times the length of their bodies. Scientists took a group of fleas and put them in a jar only a few inches tall. So when they jumped, they hit their heads. After a few hours, they were taken out of the jar and placed on the floor. Yet the fleas continued to jump only a few inches. They had learned their powers were limited. Many of us live with such limiting ceilings too, but we don't have one. At our source, we have unlimited energy. At any time, we can choose to step into the unlimited being each of us is. We can be a role model for limitation or for unlimited power and potential. Which legacy do we prefer to leave? Were we born to thrive? Yes, so let's do it. Stephen Lane Taylor said, "We are messengers to the divine, and we constantly receive messages from the divine. We are channels of creativity." And Ernest Holmes wrote in this thing called life, "The person who fears life gets little pleasure from living. The antidote for fear is faith." And here is today's affirmation. Today, I make the choice to move, seek guidance from the source that created all that is. I recognize that as I rely on spirit, my life unfolds in peace and joy. And so it is.
Good morning. And now we will share our, no, not yet. Not yet. We will do our declaration. Let's do our declaration 3 times. So please join me. Join us. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. And we are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. And so it is. Now we will go to somewhere here. Okay, why don't you go away? I don't want you. Lost something.
You hide behind your laughter, behind the mask you wear. Smile so wide, but your eyes say you're barely there. You've been running from shadow. You act like you're strong, but your hands shake at night. Trying to fake peace, but it don't feel right. You forgot how to breathe when the silence speaks, and every mirror just shows what you're scared to meet. Your true self, you don't have to hide. Let that pain be seen, let your soul collide with the grace that heals, with a love that stays. You ain't too far gone, you ain't lost your way. You're more than the scars, more than the past you've held. There's a light still burning in your true self. You've been told you're not enough, that you're always wrong. Carried lies like bricks, trying to act strong. But what if the truth ain't what they say? What if broken still means you're made to stay? You ain't the fight, you ain't the fall. You're the voice that rose when you lost it all. You're the tears that dried, but still left a mark. You're a work of grace, painted in the dark. Your true self, it's worth a life, even if it's buried deep inside. Ain't about perfection, it's about being real, owned in the hurt and letting it heal. You're more than the stories that they always tell. There's beauty waiting in your true self. So tear down the wall, let the silence break. You don't have to smile just for their sake. Let the truth rise like a holy bell. You ain't forgotten, you're your true self. Your true self, that's who God sees. Not the guilt, not the broken dreams. You're a soul worth saving, a heart still gold, even if the world's grown hard and cold. So come as you are, don't be someone else. There's freedom waiting in your true self.
Oh, I listened to that song a few times this last week. That was Jelly Roll. When they put out what the topic was going to be this week, I got an email back from Jeffrey guessing what song would be, and it might be. You never know. It wasn't this one. Yeah. Today's talk is never imitate, but be yourself. I listened to this young man speak yesterday about hating ourselves. And I don't know if anybody else has had that experience in life. Where you've hated or really disliked yourself or who you were. And what he said was so true, and it fit a lot of areas in my life where I hated who I was. Sometimes I hated my actions. I didn't understand my actions. That was particularly in my 20s when I was loose and wild and free with drugs and alcohol and all that good stuff. I didn't like the things I did when I partook of all those substances. And there were other times I didn't like who I was. I didn't like where I grew up. I didn't like parts of my family. Maybe we were just feeling like in that song where we're told we were not enough. I remember that, or that I didn't fit in. And there's life, so many times in life, I felt that I did not fit. I did not fit in this area, that area, or maybe life in general. Another story I was reading was, well, not a story, but it's the idea that when you're gay, for a lot of your life, your early life, you are not yourself. You have to hide. And how many times in this world have we had to hide because we do not feel that we fit in, like with our parents? They believe one thing, yet we may move on to believe something else. Like I was raised in a Lutheran church in Wisconsin, and it took a long time before I discovered religious science. Probably not quite 50 years. And when I found it, it was like, and I know this is a cliche. A lot of people say they came home. And it was a lot of the beliefs that I had since I was a little kid, like questioning, being told that our religion was the one true religion. And I know other religions keep saying that too, so how can they all be the one true religion? That's crazy. And I said I would never change or leave my religion unless I found one that I believed in more. And lo and behold, I came to believe. I came to accept this I want to say this way of being. It's more than a religion to me. It's a way of being. And it's so similar to the 12-step program that the two are, if you follow the two, life can be so great. And there's ways we have to cope and not hate ourselves and not dislike ourselves and who we are. It's by accepting those parts and they're experiences of our life. They're steps in our life. They're a part of our life. And unfortunately or fortunately, we cannot go back and change them. The only thing is we can move forward, accept these things of ourselves, and tend to our emotions. Because we need to confront our fears instead of burying them. Instead of burying our past, we have to recognize it, we accept it and we move on. And our mistakes and our errors. We are human. We are divine. And we do make mistakes. Bruce Lee said, always, I love this, always be yourself. Express yourself. Have faith in yourself. Do not go out and look for a successful personality and duplicate it. Because if you go out and find, you want to be somebody else, then you're not being authentic with yourself. You're not being your what Jelly Roll called your true self. And we need to accept our true self. What they always say, warts and all. We need to learn to give ourselves grace, like you mentioned in that song. Give ourselves grace. Don't beat ourselves up. I mean, we spend more time, I think, judging and criticizing ourselves than I think other people do. Because I know myself, if I don't act a certain way or whatever, I think, well, people won't like me or blah, blah, all this crazy stuff that is none of my business to start with. That's one of those things that like in the 4 agreements, none of it is any of our business. In the quote by Bruce Lee, it highlights the importance of individuality, self-expression, and self-confidence. It encourages people to embrace their uniqueness. Each of us have a uniqueness. Each of us came here to be exactly what we are here to be, the divine expressing through us. Like the great experiment, the great experiment, the divine, wanted to experience life in the human form and allow us to make mistakes, to be creative, to be loving, to be kind. To embrace our uniqueness rather than trying to copy others' success. We can look at others and say, oh, I could be like that maybe. And there's certain parts of it you might want to embrace. Like, you see somebody that's really kind and you're not so kind. And you say, well, maybe I could be a little more like that person. And you find it in yourself, that part of yourself that is kind, that is courteous, that is compassion, that has empathy. But not copy that person. Because if you copy that person, might as well just copy everybody and we'll just be all the same thing. Which I'm glad we're not. Through these simple yet powerful words, Bruce Lee expresses that true success comes from embracing one's authentic self. Your true success of who you are is embracing who you are. I mean, mistakes and all, you can't get, yes, we make mistakes, but we can learn from them. We actually should, there's a should in there, but we should learn from them. If we don't, then we're repeating it over and over. That's insanity. I know my stepfather used to practice insanity all the time. I mean, he would quit drinking for a while, but then he'd go back thinking it would be different. And several times it was different. It was worse. It just got worse and worse and worse. And a lot of times that's what happens in life if we don't learn from our errors. We're going to live to repeat them. As when we remove societal expectations, I think that's a big one. When we remove these expectations that other people have on us, and the urge to imitate others. When we remove that, the urge, we don't need to do that. We can find our true potential and achieve real fulfillment. When we release the idea that we have to live up to others' expectations, that includes our own, because sometimes our expectations, I've realized that in life that my expectations are way too high for most people, and that includes myself. And so I have to get off that high expectation horse, you might say, and allow people to be who they are. I know in the time we're living in, I know there's certain individuals in this world, certain groups of people that it is hard to allow them to be themselves and embrace them. But they are here to do them also, whether we like that or not. Damn, that's hard to say. Whether we like it or not. Society tends to idolize and glorify certain traits and talents, certain achievements, pushing people to mold themselves in an image of these admired individuals. Just look at the commercials on television. Oh, God, I hate commercials. You have to take this to be this. You've got all these cosmetics and drugs and whatever. If you do all these, then you're gonna that song, you're gonna be happy for the rest of your life. That's God, that's just so rude. Just we let go of the idea that we have to be what others believe we should be. Like I see a lot of these Asian comics. I love to watch comedians. They just lift me right up a lot of times. Anyway, they said, well, my parents wanted me to be a doctor, but I'm a comedian, and all this and that. And it's, yeah. And they laugh about it because their expectations of a lot of Chinese parents want their children to be professionals, doctors, architects, whatever. And maybe the kids don't want to be that. Maybe that's not their calling. What is your calling? Is your calling to be something your parents wanted? Does your parents want you to be a doctor or a teacher, undertaker? I remember my one girlfriend in high school, her mother wanted one of her sons to be an undertaker. She didn't say one of her children because, girls could be undertakers. I've never met one. But she said because they make a lot of money. Because everybody's not, everybody dies. Hence Joni Ernst. But yeah, she really wanted one of her sons to be an undertaker. And actually, none of them did. So if we let go of all these expectations that we allow society, because if we embrace them, then we're allowing them. We're giving them permission to inflict or whatever these societal expectations on us. But sometimes we do that to ourselves. Well, I should do this and I should be this, but I don't want to do that. It doesn't make my heart sing. Everyone has a unique mix of talents, perspectives, and experiences. Each of us is good at something. Sometimes it takes a long time to find out what we're good at. Maybe we're not perfect at it, but we're good at it. By embracing and expressing this individuality honestly, to be honest about it. Maybe you want to be a musician. Maybe you're not that good at it, but it does make your heart sing. And you're doing it honestly. We can foster personal growth and achieve a true sense of accomplishment. That true sense, being true to ourselves, being true of who we came here to be. Sometimes it takes a long time to figure that out. Sometimes some people never figure it out. They just move on, and they may be doing it, but they don't realize it. Ralph Waldo Emerson, I really like him. In the Self-Reliance, he said, insist on yourself. Never imitate. Your own gift can present every moment with a cumulative force of a whole life's cultivation. But of the adopted talent of another, you have only to extemporaneous half possession. So if you're imitating someone else, you're not being fully yourself. You're just being like a mirror of that person. That which each can do best, none but his maker can teach him. So insist on yourself and never imitate. There's a time in every person's education when they arrive at the conviction that envy is ignorance, that imitation is suicide, that he must take themselves for better or for worse as their portion. That though the wide universe is full of good, no kernel of nourishing corn can come to them but through their toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given to them to till. We need to tend to our own selves, to our own backyard, you might say. We can't live someone else's life. They cannot live ours. Even if you walk a mile in their shoes, It's interesting that we think we know what's best for others. Of course I do. No, not really. Do I even know what's best for me? That's why in a lot of my treatments, and we're taught that to, you want this or something better. And the idea, in my interpretation of that idea, is that the divine knows probably a little bit better than what I know what's best for me. Because what I think is best for me sometimes is too small. We think too small. We need to allow ourselves to be alive, to be authentic with ourselves. Always be the first-class version of yourself rather than a second-class version of someone else. Judy Garland said that. And if you look at her life, turned out sad, in my opinion, because she allowed the studios to dictate her life, her life on the screen and her personal life. And she ended up being, I mean, the last time I saw her was on, I think it was the Tonight Show, and they almost had to carry her on because she was not in control of herself physically. And that's what can happen when we try to live up to everybody's expectations at once. We tend to look for something that will numb us, whether it's drugs, alcohol, food, whatever. We look for those things that may numb us because we feel we can't live up to others' expectations. And damn it, why should we? The only expectations we need to live up to is ourselves. And sometimes we need to knock those down a bit. I'm just speaking from personal experience. This advice about always be a first-class version of yourself resonates more than ever in the age of influencers, because we have all those influencers on. I was listening to a radio show the other day with a talk show that we're talking about, these influencers, a lot of them make a lot of money. And do you follow these influencers? I'd like to say no, but there's certain things that in a way they're well, just like the commercials. They're influencers. Oh, you need to have this. Oh my God, I got to go get this. We're millions of young people and others who are no longer so young, aim to follow the footsteps of their idols, whether they're the movie stars or sport athletes or just these people pushing this stuff. A lot of it through social media. I know I'm guilty of social media a lot, and I see a lot of that. And most times I scroll right by. They're copying everything from their way of dressing and acting to the way of thinking. Do we copy? Dressing wise, I don't copy anybody. I do ask for suggestions from somebody sometimes, but I try to be my own self. I try in my life, even though there's no try, just do, to be authentic and in integrity with myself. And that is what I feel we have to do in this life, is to be authentic with ourselves, to look at ourselves. And if we see something we don't like, we have the permission to change it, to shift it. To change, like we say, change your thinking, change your life. If something changes, you can change. But that's only if you want to change. Then there's this thing called the comparison trap. The tendency to copy others is not new. In fact, as social creatures, we all also learn by imitation. We learn by seeing how things are done and also by interacting with others. The experience of others helps us plan ahead to avoid painful mistakes. Yeah, we can see what others have done and say, well, I'm not going down that road, or I'd rather not go down that road. So you can adjust. In fact, according to Albert Bandura, the possibility of learning from each other allows us to make a significant quantitative leap in our skills or knowledge without having to travel a long road marked by trial and error. We can see others. That's like in AA, I saw a lot of people go out, what to say, fall off the wagon and come back again. And some would go out and not come back. That was, we used to say that they are doing the experience, or they're, how does it go? They went out so we don't, that we can learn from it, so we don't have to do that. However, what happens when we try to be a copy of someone else instead of the genuine version of ourselves? In psychology, the phenomenon is called mirror behavior and refers to the tendency to imitate others, often with the aim of fitting in with a group or feeling valued. We don't fit in, so we have to do. Gangs are a perfect example. You know, the young, usually men, they don't fit in, and they meet these other members of the gang, and they can immediately, they can feel value. They can feel like they fit in, they belong. And that's one of the biggest things in this existence is the feeling of belonging, the desire to belong. The problem is that with the widespread of social media, a distorted mirror has been created through which we only see perfect lives. Perfect lives. We don't see the pitfalls, unless of course you watch reality TV. That's and the stratospheric achievements, comparisons then become unavoidable, and we can fall into the trap of wanting to be like those people. I can't say that I've never not wanted that in my life. There's certain things I would like to be like, but that is up to me to change that in my own way. The irony is that the harder we try to be like others, the more false we become. That's why I found lying is not a good thing for me to use. Because I look at it, and it's because the way I look at it is, you tell this person one thing, you tell that person another thing, and then another person another thing. I can't remember what I told who, in the situations. So that's what I find, if you're going to tell them the truth, because you can't forget the truth. Sometimes we'd like to, but yeah, it's the more us we lose ourselves. The more we try to imitate someone else, the further away we become from ourselves, and the less satisfying our achievements will be. When we become something that we are not, or try to be someone we are not, that's not an achievement. That's not fulfillment. I don't believe it is, because I want fulfillment in my life, but where can that fulfillment come from? It's not going to come from others. They can be part of it, but they're not the full thing of it. By trying to fit into someone else's mold, our identity becomes diluted. Try to figure out, okay, is this me, or is that, that person, and our security becomes shaky, our self-confidence. We are also likely to end up feeling emptier in our lives, losing meaning because pursuing someone else's dreams does not provide us with the energy and motivation to stay on track. Trying to live someone else's dreams. I think it's okay if you share a dream with someone, but taking someone else's dream on as your own, that's not always going to feel. To me, it's not going to feel like it. We need to remember that we have not come to this world to satisfy others and conform to their way of seeing the world, but to develop our potential to the maximum and be the best version of yourself. Do not waste this opportunity by becoming a secondhand common copy of someone else. Secondhand rose. Ernest Holmes teaches that we should celebrate our unique existence. Celebrate our uniqueness. What is your uniqueness? Ask that question. That's a good question. Where in my life am I unique? No matter what others think. That's a big one. Because we're afraid. I speak from experience there. We're afraid of what others will think. What will my family think? What will my friends think? What will the neighbors think? I've heard that one before. Who cares? Like to say again, it's none of my business. They have their right to think what they want to think. Ernest Holmes in this thing called You, which if you haven't read, I highly recommend it. It's I think it's the smallest book, but to me, it's the most powerful book. You exist so that divine feeling, fire, imagination, and creativity may be expressed through you. The Spirit comes to you with a new and fresh creativity. You need not ask what others have done or how they have done it. Be yourself and express life as you find it. Never imitate. Just like that American cheese. It's supposed to be the imitation of real cheese, and it's not. I just tried to let in. There's another quote from Ernest Holmes. I have a couple here that I had to use them because they're perfect for the time. The wick of your individual life runs deep into the oil of your pure being. There is but one life, and that life is your life now. No matter what confusion appears at the surface of your life, there is always a place of calm at the center of your being. No matter what confusion appears on the surface, there's always a calm at your being. I like that. No matter how turbulent the waves may be on the ocean of your experience, beneath there is a changeless peace. Your being is submerged, but not lost in the infinite. So one of the life works I thought about it and I go, I don't know, you don't always need life work. But I think it would behoove us to ask ourselves this week, what are my talents? What are my gifts? And am I using them? Am I using the gifts that were given me, that have been instilled in me by the divine? Or am I trying to be the mirror of someone else? One more quote from Ernest Holmes, same book. So you've heard half the book today. Not really. If the spirit has seen fit to express itself through a physical universe and to give you a physical body, it would be absurd to think of this body or environment as an illusion, as unworthy of your attention. Rather, you should think of them as things of joy. It would be absurd to think of this body or environment as an illusion, unworthy of your attention. Pay attention to ourselves. Don't mind the others. That's none of our business either. Allow them to be them and you to do you. Life is too short. This life is too short. Who knows what will come be after this? But right now and here, we need to pay attention to our lives, to our gifts, our talents, and be the true, authentic self that we came here to be. And so now I do have a affirmation. Let's see. I must find it here. Whoop, 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 whoop. Okay. Here we go. I create a path that stays true to who I am, ultimately shaping my significant journey. I create a path that stays true to who I am, ultimately shaping a significant journey. And one more time. Create a path that stays true to who I am, ultimately shaping my significant journey. And so it is. I'll just switch over to. And guess what? Jeffrey was right. This is a great song.
Every snowflake has a different shape. Every raindrop has a path to take. Every diamond has a different shine. Every atom in itself divine. Be authentic, be alive, be connected to the love inside. Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. Conformity can make you choke. Every painter has a different stroke. You got a calling, it's time to seek. Why creation made us all unique. authentic, be alive, be connected to your heart inside. Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. Be yourself, be yourself. Inner guidance gonna make you sing and be connected with everything. Love and joy you cannot miss. Be yourself and follow your bliss. Be authentic, be alive, listen to the words of the wise. Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. Be yourself, be yourself. Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. Be yourself, be yourself. Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. Be yourself, be yourself. Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself. Be yourself, be yourself.
Be yourself. That's a good thing to remember. So I just want to be in gratitude for this time we've shared. This time not only in this moment, but this time we share on this earth. For there's only one life, and that life is God's life. That life is our life right here and right now. That life is here for us to live, to enjoy, to express, to be ourselves. And so with that, I give thanks for each and every person that has been connected ever with Northern Lights Center of Spiritual Living. And for the sacred space that we have, for the safe space that we create, whether it is in person, whether it is through the online process, whatever that connection that we make when we make a community. And so I give thanks for being ourselves, each and every one of us, being who we came here to be. And so I release that all into the divine law, which knows exactly what to do. And I release it, I let it go, and I let it be. And so it is.